prosecution was spending, all their resources to get these guys convicted. It was absolutely essential, and they had absolutely no shame. They would put on any piece of evidence.
And according to the defense, would go to any lengths to hide evidence. 1 month before trial, defense attorney Johnson got a tip that a prior expert who examined Buckley's boots, a technician at the DuPage County Crime Lab, had ruled them out as a match. The sheriffs had actually retrieved the boots and instructed the technician not to file a report, a move that led the crime lab director to resign. Prosecutors never told the defense about that initial finding, a violation of Illinois law.
They got caught. We asked the judge to dismiss the case or for some sanction for what they did. The judge did nothing, did nothing. And so they were able to continually get away with putting on tainted evidence, perjured testimony. I remember at a couple of points getting up and saying to the judge, when is this going to stop?
After deliberating for 2 days, the jury deadlocked on the charges against Buckley. But they found Rolando Cruz and Alex Hernandez guilty. It was February 22nd, 1985, almost 2 years to the day since the murder.
It was such a high-profile case. The need for conviction and the state's desire for conviction was obviously felt by the jury. I really do believe that the jury's attitude in that case was, give us something to hang our hats on and we'll give you the guilty verdict.
Even one juror who had some doubts about the guilt of Rolando Cruz finally gave in to the majority.
I didn't feel that I was going to be the one person that is going to say, I don't think any of them are guilty. I just couldn't do that. You know, you sit for 7 weeks and you look at poor Tom and Pat Nicarico, and you know, that's very tough.
The state planned to retry Stephen Buckley, but prosecutor Thomas Knight wanted a little help from Cruz.
The night before sentencing, they came to DuPage County Jail, asked me to testify against Stephen Buckley, and that they would, quote unquote, beg the judge to give me just natural life, but they couldn't promise. I told him he was stupid. I told him I didn't kill anybody. I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. I wasn't testifying against anybody.
The next day, the judge sentenced Cruz and Hernandez to die by lethal injection. They were transferred to the condemned unit of the Menard Correctional Facility in southern Illinois. Both were 21 years old.
Rolando Cruz was once again facing an appointment with the Illinois executioner, but his defense team was determined to vindicate him. They would soon acquire an unlikely ally, one of the prosecutors.
With Rolando Cruz facing execution once again for the rape and murder of Jeanine Nicarico, the machinery of American justice took its usual course. The verdict was automatically appealed to the Illinois Supreme Court. When Assistant Attorney General Mary Kenney was assigned to handle the appeal, she had no idea it would mean the end of her career as a prosecutor. Kenney's job was to defeat the death row appeal. But as a prosecutor, she knew she had a responsibility to make sure the defendant, Rolando Cruz, had gotten a fair trial.
My fascination with the criminal justice system has to do with how do we make this process fair? How do we ensure that the worst kind of mistake that there could be, the execution of an innocent man, doesn't happen?
Kenney thought that mistake was being made in the case of Rolando Cruz. She concluded he had not received a fair trial. Kenney believed the jury in the second trial should have been allowed to hear more about Brian Dugan's past crimes. Deeply troubled by her finding, Kenney went to her supervisor, hoping she could convince him to admit a terrible mistake had been made.
One of the responses I got from him is, what are we going to tell the Nicaricos about this? There was a real concern that this victim's family is pushing for an execution, and no one wanted to have to tell them that innocent men had been sentenced to die.
Over Kenney's objections, Illinois Attorney General Roland Burris pressed on to affirm the death sentence. Kenney resigned in protest and made public a letter in which she begged Burris, do not help execute an innocent man.
I loved being a criminal prosecutor. quitting was difficult. I struggled with that decision, but I knew that I was doing the right thing.
His conviction, forcing DuPage County to put him on trial for yet a third time.
It was only after a request for reconsideration which led to, frankly, an outpouring of support in the form of what we lawyers call amicus curiae briefs from various law school professors, religious leaders, that led the court to agree to reconsider the case.
One of the people who paid close attention to that judgment was the attorney who was preparing to appeal the conviction of Alex Hernandez, Scott Turow. The noted author says that in 18 years of practicing law, he had never seen as many abuses committed by police and prosecutors as he did in the Nicarico case.
You can't take $10,000 and essentially say to somebody, make something up, and then offer it in evidence against them. I mean, that's not the way we do things in this country. But that was what happened to Alex Hernandez.
In January 1995, Turow convinced an Illinois appellate court to overturn the conviction of Hernandez. Now he and Rolando Cruz would get